Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was directed by Sergio Leone and was released back in 1967 and is a masterpiece. Absolutely no question about this film. How many films can you think of that are so iconic in cinema and are just so recognizable just by a lot of quotes, soundtracks, and even if you haven't really seen films like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, there are so many iconic references and themes and even soundtracks that are present in multiple TV shows, multiple movies, spoofs. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just a highly, extremely revolutionary film ever since its initial release. And let me just give you a reminder on how iconic this film is. I'm pretty sure a lot of you, technically almost all of you, have heard this soundtrack that I'm about to put on in this video in just a bit. And I want you to stop and think about where you've heard this specific soundtrack, or where you've heard this in other films or spoofs or TV shows. Just stop to think just for one moment on where and how iconic this soundtrack is. Because when you hear soundtracks like this, it's present in a lot of things. It's present in a lot of TV shows, movies, and technically you already know it's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and that's how iconic this film is. And in this film, a bounty hunter teams up with a somewhat of a sidekick character against a journey and a race against another figure who's supposedly after a stash of gold that's buried somewhere in a cemetery. I love to talk about movies. I love to talk about a lot of movies, not just great movies. I like to talk about any types of movies, even if they're bad movies. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is just, there's something important about this movie, highly important. There's something that's highly important about this movie. This movie is legendary. This movie is a masterpiece. Like, technically, it's really hard to beat this accomplishment. For me, this would be the best Western movie to date. This movie has extremely clever writing into the film, and amazing characters that you can easily connect with, and an amazing plot, and an iconic and such an unforgettable score. And the direction that Sergio Leone brings into this film is absolutely very fascinating, because every single shot that's delivered in this film, and I say this about a lot of directors too, every single shot that he delivers in this film absolutely gives you the idea and the mindset of realism. Everything in this film absolutely looks real. Like, it actually feels like you're part of this environment in an open desert that's located in the western regions back in the day. There are a lot of things that are very exciting about films like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like I said, this film has amazing writing, amazing actors, amazing characters, amazing direction. This film has it all. And this is one of the few films that I will actually call legendary. This film hasn't lost a single potential throughout its life, technically. This film has kept on shocking audiences for decades, and it'll continue to do that, because The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is actually that good. Now let's talk about an actor that I absolutely give praise to in this film. Clint Eastwood is absolutely very great in this film. Probably, this has to be on my top 10 favorite performances of all time, technically. So, he has so much potential. His character of Blondie is very serious and very engaging as well. And he has a lot of BA moments. And a lot of those moments are what makes the character shine in this film. He stands out as a main hero. He stands out as a go-getter. He is just the definition of an antagonist in a film. Now let's talk about Eli Wallach, who plays as Tuco in this film. He possibly is the second character who takes this entire film from his first scenes to his final ones of the film. And throughout the entire runtime of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, you can tell that this character is desperate. absolutely desperate to find this hidden gold that's possibly, supposedly, somewhere in a cemetery. And he doesn't know that until further on into the film. He finds out. And for example, once he runs into a character known as Bill Carson, who supposedly stole all of this gold and buried it, he finds Bill Carson, which his corpse is nearly dying. And once Carson is dead, Tuco knows that he has to get help from Blondie in order to find this gold that's supposedly in a cemetery. Considering that Blondie technically knows where it's hidden. And Tuco, the interesting thing about this is that Tuco tries to get Blondie to speak. But beforehand, he almost tries to kill Blondie. And after he knows where the gold is, he knows that he needs Blondie for, say, a human shield in order to get this gold that he's after. And it's very, very brilliant storytelling from there and to the continuation of the entire film. And this movie is 3 hours long, just in case if there are any if there are any viewers who are curious to know about the good, the bad, and the ugly and haven't seen this film. I highly recommend this film out because it's definitely one of the best, and it's one of my all-time favorites. And this movie remains legendary. It honestly does. There are so many things that are exciting about the good, the bad, and the ugly. This movie is just perfect. The actors are phenomenal. The characters are so lovable and relatable. The story is absolutely masterfully written, and the direction is masterfully done by Sergio Leone himself. And the interesting thing about Sergio Leone's films is that he'll come to make a film every once in a while, for instance, like other directors like Stanley Kubrick, who I would say I enjoy Stanley Kubrick's filmmaking a lot more as a director. But Sergio Leone as a director, I really do love his work as a filmmaker. He has an interesting take on all of his films that he makes. Even though I said, like, for example, I'd prefer, like, maybe Stanley Kubrick's films. But Sergio Leone has something interesting about all of his films. And the direction that he delivers into the good, the bad, and the ugly is absolutely outstanding. Now let's talk about one of the scenes in this movie that I'd call one of the most brutal scenes in cinema. It's where Tuco finally encounters Angel Eyes, which is the main antagonist of the film, who's played by Lee Van Cleef, who is absolutely flawless in this film as a villain. Let's talk about the scene where Tuco is getting beat up, brutally beat up. Back then in the 60s, a lot of films will do these cliche fight scenes that look fake, but in movies like this, the violence in this movie and the drama is absolutely realistic. And when Tuco gets beat up and slammed against the desk, it actually looks like he's dying, like he's being killed or suffering. And it's absolutely frightening to watch. But let's head back to Lee Van Cleef, who again played as Angel Eyes in this film. Absolutely great in this movie. And the thing that's very interesting is that he means business, especially when it comes to this mission of finding gold that's supposedly in a cemetery. And he'll do anything to go after it. And let's talk about the final climax of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Possibly the most iconic scene in cinema, where Blondie, Tuco, and Angels are all in one area, and they're standing in a battle formation, and the epic Western music just slowly begins to rise and get more intense as our hero, our sidekick, and our antagonist are all in one area and getting ready to take the last shot, or possibly maybe even kill each other. That's honestly one of the best scenes in the entire film. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a perfect example of a cinematic masterpiece landmark. The action sequences are really, really well directed by Sergio Leone himself. The drama, the iconic scores, the characters, the writing, the actors, the story, everything that's so excellent about this film just collides into a cinematic, iconic masterpiece. And the name of this film has remained legendary and will still stay legendary throughout its time. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly gets an A+. So guys, thank you guys so much for watching my review for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You guys have noticed that I haven't been uploading horror movies in a little bit because, you know, horror movie month. I just wanted to do a couple of movie reviews that are from non-horror movies because I love doing movie reviews and stuff like that. But after this movie, after this review, I promise you all the other reviews will just be horror movie reviews. And then in November, I'm going to be doing other movie reviews and stuff like that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are the best. I love every single one of you. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, seriously, you guys have showed support to my channel. And as always, I am MarioFan520, and I will see you next time. Peace out.